Apply Pre-Cal. We are back into my makeshift classroom. I guess we can call it a classroom. What we've done is I've taken those whiteboard pieces from school and I've just tacked them onto my wall here. So hopefully we can work with this for the time being. As we move on, we might have some issues where the seams get a little bit dark, but I'll try to deal with those as time goes by. We're continuing on with our relations and functions unit. What we looked at last time was sketching and interpreting graphs. Now, we looked at any type of graph. We should be able to distinguish whether we're dealing with a relation or a function, and that's kind of what we're leading towards anyways. So today we're going to be looking at graphs, specifically of relations and functions, and by the end of the lesson and the end of your practice, you should be able to recognize if you have a relation or if you have a function just by looking at the graph. Now, to remember, I'm just going to rewrite briefly the definition of a relation or a function, and then we can use that to analyze some graphs that I've got behind me. Okay, so bear with me for a second to write this down. So the first thing we're looking at is a function, and a function is a special type of relation where the elements of your first set, so remember we have those two lists on our table, the elements that are in the first set, and we call those the independent variable. On a graph, they'll be on your x-axis. Those elements only connect, they only relate to one element from the second set. If we had an issue where, for example, in our arrow diagram, we have two arrows coming off of one of those elements, doesn't work, can't do that. Okay, so if we had an arrow diagram, only one arrow can come off of your independent variable. Now, I use the word relation to describe a function, so I'm going to quickly define a relation one more time just so that we can recall on that, so bear with me. A relation is just an association between the elements from two different sets. So it doesn't matter if you have more than one arrow coming off of your arrow diagram, it just works. For a function, that's not okay. Now that's great if you have an arrow diagram, but in all honesty, arrow diagrams are for you to organize your thoughts. They're for you to learn what a relation or a function might be, but you're probably not going to see those too much. What you will see though are a lot of graphs. Especially if you've taken any science class before, you're going to be dealing with a lot of graphs. So let's look at a few of those and see if we can figure out if we have a relation or a function. Okay, so what I've done is I've drawn a couple of graphs here. I've mostly free-handed them. You might want to get those in your notes as well to the best of your ability. What might help is if I go over it first and then you can pause and copy it down. What I want to show you is with graphs, there's a very easy way to tell if you have a function or not. And we call that the vertical line test. Okay, the vertical line test is very simple to do. All you need is a graph and a vertical line. If you have that, you take your vertical line, I'm just going to use my marker here. You're going to start on the leftmost point of your graph, and you're going to move all the way to the rightmost point of your graph. Just like that. And if at any point your vertical line crosses more than one point on your graph, you do not have a function. Now in our first example here, it should be obvious. There's a straight line right over here. And if I was to draw a vertical line over top of that, you'll see that it fails my vertical line test. Therefore, this first graph is not a function. My second graph down over here, again, I've intentionally made it look like it should be obvious. Yeah, it's a straight line. You can put a line over top of that if you wanted to, but we're dealing with a vertical line test. So if I make a vertical line, am I ever going to cross more than one point? And the answer in this case is no, therefore I do have a function. Okay, so that's the easiest way to tell with graphs, and you'll have to do it in some of your practice as well. So the next thing that I want to show you also involves a graph. So I'm just going to clear this, I'll cut ahead, and once I have the graph, we'll take a look there. So let's take a look.